You may be wondering why me going to a history exhibit has anything to do with modern farming and where your food comes from. But if we were here on this spot 150 years ago, it's a Saturday morning. This is probably where I would be. This is the supply store. This is where all the farmers in this part of Georgia would have come to get equipment, feed, anything they needed to keep the farm running. They could have walked right down to the other end of this building. That's where they'd have gone, gotten the cloth for the clothing. This is where they would have gotten the food, the dry goods. We're here today on the campus of Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College in Tifton, Georgia, for their annual Folklife Festival. It's a 400-acre living museum, and it's extraordinary. I all the time tell you about where your food comes from. Today, we're going to tell you where your food came from. Saturday morning in Tifton, Georgia. I know it looks like it could be Saturday morning in 1870. It's not. It's 150 years later. We've been telling you for a long time where the food comes from. We wanted to give you a shot to see where the food came from. You think it's hard now. You can't imagine what it was like then. They've got me ready. They gave me work gloves coming out of the gate. So this is not something I put on every day. We're gonna see how much stuff I can break today. What we're about to show you doesn't have anything to do with anything that you are going to eat. But unless you were a nudist farmer, you will very much appreciate what happens here. Chris Adams, you are a sheep shearer.
Yes, sir. This is a focus of a project that I started about a year or so ago, the Wiregrass Ecological and Cultural Project. Focus of that is understanding the people of this region 150 plus years ago. My ancestors. My family's been here for 10 generations.
10 generations?
Yes, sir, a little over 200 years.
We know how hard rural life and especially agricultural life is now. It was much more difficult then. We couldn't go to the store and buy, I mean, maybe if you had a lot of money, you could and go buy this shirt. But for the most part, people had to be completely self-sufficient. And a lot of the way that they did that was clothing that came from wool. Where our wool comes from is from your friends who are in this barn.
Yes, sir. These are Gulf Coast sheep that we'll be shearing here in a little while, a heritage breed that are native or somewhat native to this region. They're descendants of sheep that were brought by the Spanish, the French, and the English. And as a lot of the old timers said, they thrived on neglect. They were only rounded up once a year simply for their wool.
Just got a haircut.
Yeah, just got a haircut. They weren't really raised for meat either.
Doesn't hurt the sheep, doesn't hurt you.
Once he's shorn, that's when he gets put back out and thrown back into the pen, later on released into the woods for another year.
And these shears?
Got my wet rock, keep my shears sharp.
All right.
But the shears
so that's a whetstone.
Made of one piece of steel like this. And the tension is put on it by moving your hand back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But those shears are made by the same company that's been making them since the 1740s in England.
Good gracious. And then the final step of the process is what's in this basket. Now, how much wool off of that one sheep would you be able to make a glove or a suit?
You could probably make a set of gloves, mittens, or a knit cap out of 1 or 2 fleece, but you'd be going through hundreds of sheep after shearing. To help you understand, these sheep were not owned in 10s and 20s by many people. They were owned in the hundreds. At one point, 5 million sheep in 1860 roamed across Georgia, and I'd say probably a third of them were in the southern region.
I'm getting here at a good time when the hardest work is already done You've got the back end. That's really the more problematic end, I think. Will a sheep bite you?
I've never been bitten by a sheep.
So that doesn't hurt. That probably feels good, like when you get your hair cut.
Yeah, and it's just the pressure here with my arm is just to let her know that she does need to stay still.
Right.
Like Chris said, it's a lot like a little kid.
This is the first of many more steps before it turns into something you're going to wear.
Yes.
I would have thought just getting the wool off was enough. What's the importance of trying to get it off in a single coat, in a single piece?
Well, what you're doing is trying to get the longest fibers possible, and that makes it much easier to spin.
How many times a year would you shear a sheep?
Most times it was every year. In South Georgia specifically, it was every May.
Every May.
Between the planting and the heat of summer.
Because they appreciated this haircut come July in Georgia.
After the shearing was over, and of course all the wool was gathered, cleaned, carded, dyed, it would take thousands of hours, hundreds if not thousands of hours to produce one garment. That could be a single dress, that could be a sack coat, that could be the breeches like I've got on, which are made of a mix of wool and cotton, known as jeans cloth. But you're talking thousands of hours.
Did you ever think you would shear a sheep?
In my dreams. I grew up reading Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, so this was kind of, you had the whole Laura Ingalls Wilder thing. So this was almost a fantasy for you. I can't wait to wrap my arms around a dirty sheep and help shear it.
Yes, very much so. And I got to plow with the mules earlier today, and I came back over here, I was on cloud nine.
All right, they're gonna be another minute more with this. We're still working on side one. They're gonna flip this record album in a minute and do the other side. We're gonna move on. We're gonna come back and take a look. 150 years ago, this is not a sight you would have seen here, but I think, as we all know, as soon as tractors became available, they were an important part of farming. You always see at a great festival like this, a great tractor parade. Now, unfortunately, they wouldn't let me drive any of them, so I think I'm just gonna follow along. Right this way, ma'am, right this way. Keep the traffic coming. Keep it moving, everybody, here we go.
Hi, I'm Chef Holly Shute with the Georgia Department of Agriculture representing Georgia Grown. So we're going to be making a roasted Vidalia onion salad dressing. So we've got some Dijon mustard, which we're going to put in a little food processor. Then we've got some pre-roasted Vidalia onions. They're chopped, tossed with a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, and roasted in the oven. And to that, we're going to add a little bit of sherry vinegar. Then we're going to pulse that. We're going to season that with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then some olive oil. And that's all there is to it. And you can use that on your favorite types of salad greens. So remember to take advantage of sweet Vidalia onions when they're in season.
Vidalia onions, hand-planted, hand-picked by chefs.
David King, you actually are on the museum staff here. Your expertise is all this old kind of stuff and keeping it running. What it was for, what they used it for, restoration and maintenance. That's what I do. What are we looking at right here?
This is our turpentine steel, which is built to be 1890s period.
People are generally thinking about a different kind of steel. This was specifically to
They
make.
may have had them here too.
I'm sure they did, and there may still be some in the woods around us. Let's not, let's hope we'll go hunt one in a little bit. But this was specifically to distill turpentine. It's a substance we don't think of very much today unless we need to clean a paintbrush. Why did they need turpentine?
Turpentine was the major industrial thing in South Georgia at this time because there was nothing else here to do except saw lumber, and there weren't no sawmills because they didn't have very many roads, and turpentine was fairly valuable for a whole barrel of it, so it was worth shipping it because you could get a wagon and carry a barrel. It was worth quite a bit of money. The trees were here right after the Civil War. There was just acres, millions of acres of longleaf pine trees growing naturally. That was the predominant species.
And that's where your turpentine comes from.
That's where the turpentine came from at that time.
What did people use it for in that era? What was the industrial
Turpentine's
use?
biggest use in that time was in paint, oil-based paint. It's turpentine and linseed oil and white lead or some other pigment.
So what it really became here in this part of Georgia and other places was a cash crop for farmers.
That was the biggest one in this area at that time.
We got to get it started.
Right.
You began that process a little bit. How long does this take? What do you do? What are you feeding in here?
Well,
this is a firebox, I guess. I hear it crackling in there.
We've already put some gum in a copper kettle that's
Gum,
just above this.
what kind of gum?
Gum is the technical term that you use to describe what the pine tree produces.
So when you touch pine wood or fresh cut pine and you get that sticky
Some people call it
sap on
pine
your
tar,
hand.
but the gum producer, the turpentine people, they call it gum. When we put it in here, we cook it until it separates. The turpentine is in it, and it evaporates and goes to a coil, that's the still.
Right.
And the turpentine comes out there, and when you finish cooking all the turpentine out of the gum, what's left is called rosin. The rosin now is probably more valuable than the turpentine because a lot of things have taken the place of turpentine and synthetic stuff. But worldwide, there's a very big demand for rosin.
How do we get in there to put a little more wood?
You can take this board here and put on that hook and
Oh, you got a
open that door.
notch right there in that board. That's old time ingenuity, right? So I'm gonna hook that right there. Look at that. And then just, how many are going in, David?
3.
3. Again, stop me if I go too far. 2. We'll get one more good one there. 3. Are they in far enough? Are they good far enough? Now I'm just gonna take my stick and shut the door.
Shut it kind of gently, because it is cast iron and it's been broke one time before.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
Boom.
That's right.
So now what do we do?
We wait.
How long?
Till we need more wood, maybe 5-10 minutes, but then we're gonna take maybe 20 minutes before the turpentine starts coming out on the other side.
So we got time to go right through that wood line over there and see if we can find one of them other stills.
I can tell you where one's at.
Let's go, come on.
I can't go with you though, I gotta stay here.
Just point, come on. Just
Still
walk.
though, yonder.
Well, come on, walk this way. Let's go. Let's go.
It was confiscated by a sheriff.
Just as I grew up, watching my dad in the farm supply business and being a farmer and just being in all things agriculture, just 24/7, 365, immersed in it. And you grew up and you see that and it makes an impact on you. That was a big part of what encouraged me to come back home from college and stay in agriculture and just growing up in it. So our boys are growing up, they're in college, they've been in and around produce, Vidalia onions, all their life. And I'm very optimistic and hopeful that it's made an impression on them. And as a second generation Vidalia onion grower, packer, shipper, I'm hopeful that my 2 boys come back into the family business and become 3rd generation.
Sweet potato cookies, sweet potato pound bread.
How many ways can you use a North Carolina sweet potato? North Carolina sweet potatoes are not just so good, they're so good for you. We've known that for a long time. That's why North Carolina farms 2 out of every 3 sweet potatoes grown in America.
Mashed sweet potatoes.
North Carolina sweet potatoes. And don't forget, it's just one word. You can look it up.
Sweet potato pie.
Freddie Simmons, you are from Alma, Georgia, and you are standing with a couple of friends that most people do not see every day in their lives. Now, a mule's kind of a unique animal in the first place.
It's a man-made animal. It's a cross between a horse and a donkey.
And they will not make, 2 mules will not make another mule.
No, they supposed to be sterile.
Now this is a skill that literally everybody, if you were farming, and most people were farming to eat. They were not farming to start a big company and get rich out of farming. They were farming to eat. They were farming to feed themselves and have some to sell to get through the rest of the time. So everybody had to know how to manage a mule and plow.
And they started at a young age back then, you know. My daddy said he'd come home from school and he'd get something we wasn't snag. It might have been an old biscuit or something like that. And then he'd had to hit the field. Plow.
Now there's no question it's hard work. Is it hard to do?
It ain't that hard to work. But I mean, you gotta be, it's physical work. I mean.
All right, well, Freddie, I'm willing. If you think I'm able, will you try to show me how this was done?
I'll try it. We'll make a mess or we'll go do it one.
All right, Granddaddy, this one's for you. All right.
You can put them over your neck.
I'm gonna go under my arm, over my neck. That's like my guitar strap, Freddie, but it seems to be a little bit more fun. So I'm literally in the driver's seat now. Get up, girl. Oh my goodness, you will never believe how this plow goes through this dirt. The mules are running away from me. I think we almost got a straight one. It looks very simple. If you ever wondered why farming is so dirty, take a look at what I'm in. Get up, girl, go. I'm pushing left or right on this handle that determines how straight my furrow is. Whoa, girl, whoa. Good girl. Good girl. Freddie, I'll tell you what, that was 2 rows. I went down and back, and I'm breathing hard. I know why Granddaddy was so tired at the end of the day when he came out of that field. Y'all sure are good smelling mules. Mules don't usually smell this good. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Carl, we're waiting here right now for a very specific purpose. You apparently hoping to catch something here.
I hope to catch the first probably minute and a half, maybe up to 3 minutes maybe, liquid out of here, which would be turpentine and water combination.
But what's going to come out of this pipe right here is the turpentine?
And water mixed.
And water mixed. So right now though, all we're doing...
You hear something? You might start hearing it.
I heard
No, somebody knocked on that. David, boss man, hit that thing.
That's funny, isn't it? But in the meantime, we're still waiting. You can actually hear that steam building. You can hear that trickling. And all right, now look here. There's smoke coming out of the end of this pipe now. Steam, I guess it is, not smoke. And you can smell that. You can smell that pine scent coming through there.
Oh yeah. I hear it.
Oh, there it comes. Look at that.
See, it's a different color now.
Mr. Carl, that's blue.
I know.
So now, but this is gonna be an all-day job. They've been stoking fires, building fires. They'll be tending this fire. We won't be pulling the rosin off of there for another 2-3 hours, probably. How long would you run this still in a day, and how much turpentine would you get out of it?
Well, I don't know about, you run one 24 hours, you get barrels of turpentine.
Barrels of turpentine.
You run one 24 hours.
Well, Mr. Carl, I'm gonna have to say right now, it looks like you got this situation well under hand. We're gonna let you get about your work. We're gonna go see what else we have to do in our busy farm day. Then we're gonna come back around when that rosin's coming off.
Come from Lane Southern Orchards. Peaches, pecans, homemade baked goods, jams, wine, and candies, plus some of the finest southern fare you'll find anywhere in our Peachtree Cafe, just off exit 142 on I-75 in Fort Valley, Georgia.
When you purchase Georgia-grown products, you support farmers, families, and this proud state we call home. Together, we will keep Georgia growing.
At Red Sun Farms, we understand how important it is to know where your food comes from. Our master growers select the very best non-GMO seeds to propagate and harvest in our high-tech greenhouses. Our farms are home to different varieties of tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers in both conventional and organic formats. Whether you're enjoying produce from our farms in Mexico, the USA, or Canada, your family will be enjoying the highest quality and most flavorful produce year-round. When you buy from Red Sun Farms, you will experience our seed-to-plate difference.
From North Carolina's mountains to the sea, when it comes to selecting and serving the best local foods and produce for you and your family, it's got to be NC.
We're using steam power. The cool thing about steam power is we got a boiler over here. It's making a lot of noise right now.
We hear that.
The steam's popping off because it's waiting to go to work. But we take all of our scrap wood, the slabs that come off the logs that we can't turn into lumber, we burn them in the boiler. That creates heat. The heat turns into steam. The steam comes over here, it powers the sawmill. So we're basically taking our waste and using it as our fuel to saw these logs.
I believe most people call that agriculture and stewardship.
Absolutely. We're not wasting a thing.
Back in the day, if you were farming, you did just not go buy a nice new farm or call a contractor to come out and build you a nice new farmhouse and barn. You might get a lot of help from your neighbors and friends, which is what you were hoping for, but all of that, Keith, had to start somewhere, and it started at the sawmill.
We're in South Georgia. There's not a lot of rocks down here. This used to be the bottom of the ocean millions of years ago. Right. So not a lot of rocks to build things out of.
So it makes for good farming, but not for good building.
Right, and we don't have a lot of clay. Again, it's real sandy soil, so we can't make bricks. Back in the day, this whole area was covered in longleaf pine. Trees were plentiful. So what did you build your house out of? Wood. Originally, this was a very small mill that you could move around in different areas, and that worked out really well with the people who were coming in here. They would go into a track of timber and they would cut the trees down. And after a while, when your trees were cut out of that area, now you're having to haul the trees a long distance. It was easier to pick the mill up and move the mill than it was to move the timber. You'd set it up, you'd leave it there for maybe a month or two while you were working that area, pull it all up, move it.
Now, were they logging to get lumber supply, or were they going in to clear out a homestead for somebody and leave lumber behind for them to build from, or was it some of both? What was that model?
This area down here was very heavily logged in the late 1800s and early 1900s because of all the virgin pine forests that we had down here. A lot of the heart pine that is all up in the northeast came from down here in South Georgia, the coastal plain, really from North Carolina, Virginia, all the way over to Texas.
And they would start just like we got right here behind us, Keith.
That's right. Start with a rough log. You go cut that thing down, drag it up to the mill, and get ready to start sawing.
You don't think all the time farming was dangerous work. It still is. It's incredibly hazardous, but you can see in this little area, there's probably 8 places where I could be killed and it wouldn't be hard for it to happen. So I'm just gonna grab this.
Yep.
And I'm gonna pull until...
We're gonna pull that over until it gets to 6 inches because we want a 6-inch wide board.
So when I'm pulling, it's gonna be moving that.
It's gonna move all the boards in closer to me.
Okay.
Keep on coming.
Keith, I think I'm getting this now.
We're at about 7 inches. You got about one more pull. All right, stop right there. We're exactly on 6 inches. This is forward. This is back. That's going to make the carrot move in and out. And you push it in a little bit. See how I'm pushing it in a little bit? Put a little pressure on it.
Yeah.
And we're going to feed that in nice and slow. Pull it out just a little bit. Push it in about right there. Now put some pressure forward.
Now press it forward.
There you go. It's moving. Slow down a little bit. Whoa, too fast.
Oh, I see.
You got it. You're a pro.
So this is actually almost a brake on the wheel, and you're...
And you broke it.
We are a member-driven nonprofit association of leaders from all facets of the produce industry.
Formed more than 20 years ago, we continue to promote the value of fresh fruits and vegetables in the Southeast through networking, innovation, community, and education.
Today, we are a thriving organization who continues to share and pursue our vision, mission, values, and goals.
We are the Southeast Produce Council.
For you, this isn't just a job, it's a way of life. At Farm Credit, your goal is our goal. We specialize in financing for land, farms, and homes for you. Committed to ag, committed to you.